Hello everyone, this is Kona, and thank you for tuning in to another video. So why does everyone hate the reserve shooter so much? Okay, maybe not everyone, but it does seem like lots of people get so mad when pyros use it, and I'd like to figure out why that is. Now I actually kind of think it's funny because the pyros had this weapon for a really long time, ever since 2011, and yet only within the past few years or so have I seen people actually being very vocal about this. I personally think that it has something to do with the changes to the other pyro weapons that makes the reserve shooter look better than it really is. So I want to kind of go over a brief history of this weapon and also some of the other weapons that may have influenced its status over the years and try to figure out why people get so mad about the reserve shooter. Now, it was originally released as a shotgun secondary for the soldier during the Uber update in June of 2011 along with the Liberty Launcher and the Market Gardener. It had a 15% faster weapon switching, it can mini-crit airborne targets for 3 seconds after switching to it, but it only had 3 rounds. Now, based on the stats, it seems pretty obvious what this weapon wanted you to do with it. Just shoot airborne targets, and I'm not talking about doing some sort of fancy combo like popping someone in the air and then shooting. If someone just jumps, you can mini-crit them. Now looking back, this seems actually pretty good, but me being kind of stupid at the time, thought that the reserve shooter was some sort of combo weapon, so as a soldier, I was actually trying to pop people up in the air with a rocket and then finish them off with the reserve shooter. Easier said than done, definitely. This was very inconsistent, so I just stopped using the weapon completely. Only a few months later after release, in October of 2011, Valve gave the reserve shooter to the Pyro, and this is where it gets interesting. Because the Pyro has a very reliable way to pop someone in the air, this made the reserve shooter a viable combo weapon. I personally was really happy about this because, like I mentioned before, I thought it was pretty useless on the soldier. Now you think that people would just flock to using this weapon now, but there was a problem. You see, there was once this famous pyro loadout consisting of the degreaser, the extinguisher, and the flare gun that was super OP. I'm not even kidding. Pretty much all pyros ran this. The degreaser's faster switching time allowed you to crit with the extinguisher and flare gun as a quick follow-up, and all you had to really do was light them on fire in the beginning. Back then, there was basically 2 styles of play. There was W plus M1ing, particularly with the backburner, people love the backburner, and then there was this puff and sting combo. Now this went on for years until in February of 2014, the reserve shooter would finally be shown some love. An extra round was added, so now you had 4 rounds instead of 3, and now you could mini-crit airborne targets for 5 seconds after you switched to it instead of the old 3 seconds. Now this definitely made more people use it, but it still wasn't that strong when you compare it to the degreaser and the extinguisher. And then this is where I think people started to realize that the reserve shooter was kind of cheap. It's when the extinguisher and the degreaser started to get nerfed. In 2014, the extinguisher was changed so that it could mini-crit from the front, but full crit from the back on burning players, which kind of makes no sense because we already have the back burner. Then in 2015, it was changed again so that it can crit burning players from any angle, but it had slower attack speed and slower switching time. And no one really likes doing this. No one likes doing things slower unless there's a good trade-off to doing so, and there really wasn't since the degreaser got changed as well. The degreaser used to be this sort of low damage, fast switching weapon that was great for combos, but its switching speed got nerfed and there's a higher cost to air blasting now, so it doesn't really synergize that well with the extinguisher anymore, and that pretty much put an end to the old puff and sting combo. While all of this was happening, the power jack got buffed a bit with the speed modifier, and soon people started to realize that having this extra speed was very useful as a pyro, so you're going to see a lot of that more. And then you have the flog, which is just the flog. Whatever. I know people like the flog and some people hate the flog, but hey, it's in the game and it's legit, I guess. But that thing got changed a lot. Anyway, even the reserve shooter got changed a bit. It actually got a nerf. In 2015, it was changed so that you can only mini-crit targets that were popped in the air by some sort of force. Now you can't just mini-crit someone who's jumping anymore, you have to actually pop them in the air. But maybe this is why people are so annoyed by the reserve shooter. It's not that it's way better than all the other stuff out there for the pyro, because I honestly think that if you want something better, then you look for something that's more consistent, like W plus M1ing. And yes, M1ing, I think M1ing personally is fine as a pyro. I mean, I know people get mad when they just get run down by a pyro who's just M1ing, but it's kind of what the pyro does. But yeah, I think that people don't like the reserve shooter because it sort of forces the pyro to actually use the air blast to pop someone up, and getting popped up is it seems kind of cheap in a first-person shooter. Yes, you can shoot back, but it's very disorienting when you get popped up. It's not as bad as getting stunned in a first-person shooter, but it's really close to it, and I think, when you lose some sort of control of your character's movement because of crowd control abilities like this, it can seem a little cheap at times. Now, I personally don't think it's that bad, and honestly, I don't see a whole lot of people using it. I mean, I died of flamethrowers and flare guns way more often than I do reserve shooter pyros. It's actually kind of tough to use a reserve shooter. It's not as easy as I think people think because, one, you have to actually kind of practice this. You have to, air blast them and actually predict where they're gonna, fly in the air and then shoot them. And this is not really a one-shot thing unless you're going for really low health people. It's really hard to finish someone off when they're at full health. Mini crits only give you 35% more damage, not 300 like normal crits, and air blasting them will push them a little bit further away, which can make your shotgun a little bit less reliable because of that spread. Now, if you have someone cornered or something against the wall, and you keep air blasting them over and over and keep doing this combo on them over and over, I can see how that can be really annoying if you're the person being juggled. That probably isn't really a whole lot of fun. But if you're trapped against a wall or something and you're up against a pyro, you'll probably lose that anyway no matter what the pyro does because that's where the pyro is best at, is close quarters. So let's hypothetically say that the reserve shooter was in need of a tweak. What would be changed about it? What are some changes that we could maybe have? Now, some have suggested that maybe it should be removed from the pyro completely, just get rid of it for the pyro, but I think that's a bit extreme. The soldier, I don't think if it was a soldier only weapon we would see that used at all because soldier has way better stuff. Now, some have suggested that there would be different versions of this weapon, maybe one for the pyro which would be toned down a bit, and then one for the soldier. But that would be really weird and confusing since all of the other multi-class weapons in the game work the same way no matter what class you're playing. They could revert the clip size back to 3 shots and, the mini crit time to 3 seconds after switching, but not sure if that's enough, I don't really know. So those are some of my thoughts about why I think people hate the reserve shooter so much. I think it's a combination of, cheaper tactics or other cheaper tactics long ago that have been nerfed out, and also the fact that mini crits require air blasting to work, which is a form of crowd control that can be very annoying to fight against. But what about you? Why do you think people hate the reserve shooter so much? If you've played with the old extinguisher, before the nerf, how does the reserve shooter compare now? And if you think the reserve shooter is in need of changing, how would you do it? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video, thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.